She's just a secretary. Why is she even here? The words sliced through the conference room like glass shattering on tile. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then 12 pairs of eyes turned toward me. I felt heat crawl up my neck, the kind that starts at your collar and spreads until even breathing hurts. Derek's voice still echoed, hanging in the air between us. Heavy, poisonous. The PowerPoint slide I'd been explaining blurred as my vision stung, but I refused to let the tears fall. 3 years of night classes. $87,000 in student loans. Weekends traded for work and ambition. And now, reduced to just a secretary. My name is Naomi Pierce, 32 years old. And before I tell you what happened next in that boardroom, I want you to understand something. This isn't some neat revenge fantasy. This is the story of the day I finally stopped shrinking myself just to make mediocre men feel taller. So before we go on, make sure you've hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from. Because you'll want to see how this ends. I didn't start out wanting to humiliate Derek Hollister. The truth is, I admired him at first. That's the thing about workplace bullies. They don't announce themselves on day one. They smile, shake your hand, and wait until your back is turned to sharpen the knife. Westlake Partners was my dream company, a mid-sized investment firm known for innovation and employee growth. I'd applied 3 times before finally landing an interview. When I first walked through those glass doors as an employee, I felt like I'd made it. The lobby alone looked like success. Soft lighting, marble floors, an abstract painting that probably cost more than my car. Even the chairs looked expensive and actually comfortable. After years of working in places where the break room microwave was held together by duct tape, this felt like another universe. My title, Strategic Operations Coordinator. That beautiful corporate phrase that can mean everything or absolutely nothing. In reality, I was brought in to streamline client management and modernize our internal systems. Tasks I loved and was damn good at. I had an MBA from Temple University, specializing in organizational efficiency, and years of real-world experience as an executive assistant. I understood how offices actually worked, not just how textbooks said they should. But here's what I learned fast. Some men only see what they expect to see. From day one, Derek, the director of client acquisitions, treated me like background noise. Every question about my projects he asked through my male colleagues. He'd walk right past my desk to ask Jason or Michael about my progress. In meetings, he'd let me speak, then repeat my exact words as if they were his own. Great insight. Derek, someone would say while I sat there pretending to smile. At first, I did what women have been taught to do for decades. Don't make waves. Be patient. Prove yourself. Maybe, I told myself, he's just awkward around new people. So I worked. I restructured the client intake process, saving the company 20 hours of labor every week. I built a real-time dashboard that gave executives instant updates on account status. I stayed late, came in early, brought solutions, not complaints. And still, Derek called me the new girl. 6 months in, he'd still toss a "could you grab us some coffee before we start?" across the table. Even when my name was listed as a presenter, I'd smile tightly. "I'm actually here to present today, Derek." He'd blink, momentarily confused, like I'd spoken another language. My supervisor, Elaine, noticed. She was kind but tired, juggling her own silent battles. "Just document everything," she told me once. "Build allies. Sometimes that's all you can do." But the worst part wasn't Derek. It was what he turned me into. I started to shrink, prefacing ideas with, "This might be silly," but dressing plainer, speaking softer, editing my emails 3 times before sending. I was folding myself smaller and smaller to fit into the box he'd drawn around me. Then came the Thornton account, a potential $30 million client. Everyone wanted a seat at that table. I'd done my homework, studied their portfolio, researched their sustainability goals, built a customized investment model from scratch. When my supervisor sent my analysis to the CEO, Martin Coleman, I was called into his office 2 hours later. "This," he said, sliding my report across the desk, "is exactly what we've been missing. You're on the pitch team." I could barely breathe. "Thank you, sir. I won't let you down." "Good," he said. "Derek's leading, but you'll handle the sustainability section. Thornton's big on environmental impact." That night, I bought a new navy blazer. Sharp but understated. I practiced my part until my roommate begged me to stop. I was ready. Thursday morning, the river glowed silver beyond the conference windows. I'd arrived early, arranging chairs, testing slides, setting water bottles in perfect alignment. Small details, but they mattered to me. Executives filtered in, the hum of small talk filling the air. Martin nodded at me. Elaine smiled. Then the Thornton team arrived, 4 men, 1 woman, all dressed like old money and quiet confidence. Introductions began. When it was my turn, Derek cut in smoothly. "And this is Naomi, one of our support staff. She's helping with the presentation today." Support staff. Not analyst. Not coordinator. Not the person who designed the core model you're about to pitch. I corrected him gently. "Actually, I'm the strategic operations coordinator. I developed the sustainability analysis section." His smile didn't waver, but I saw the flicker in his eyes. The meeting went on. Charts, projections, numbers, until Martin said the words I'd been waiting for. "And now, Naomi will present our sustainability model." I stood, clicked the remote, and began. When analyzing Thornton's portfolio and 5-year growth targets, I identified an opportunity to expand ESG investments while maintaining profitability. That's when Derek cut me off. "I think what Naomi's trying to say," he began, rising beside me, "is that we've found a few green bonds that won't hurt your bottom line too much. She's put together some basic numbers, but I'll walk you through the real insights." I froze. The clicker felt like ice in my hand. "Actually, Derek," I said, my voice low, steady, "these aren't basic numbers." He talked right over me. "She's just a secretary who helped gather data. I appreciate her enthusiasm, but let me handle the complex parts." That's when Martin's voice cut in, sharp and cold. "Derek, Naomi prepared this entire section. Let her continue." Derek laughed, forced and hollow. "Martin, with all due respect, we're talking about a $30 million account. She's just a secretary. Why is she even here?" The room went silent. 12 executives. 2 teams. 1 stunned woman who'd finally had enough. I set the clicker down and looked him dead in the eye. "I have an MBA from Temple University in Organizational Efficiency and Sustainable Business," I said. "I worked my way through school as an executive assistant, which means I understand how investments actually work, not just how they look on paper. I've spent 3 weeks building this model for Thornton's needs." Then I met his stare head on. "I am not just anything." Turning back to the clients, I continued. "By reallocating 12% of your portfolio into ESG investments, you'll increase your projected returns by 2.3% while lowering environmental risk. You'll find the supporting data on page 17. The room rustled as pages flipped. Catherine Thornton, the only woman on their team, looked up first. A smile, small but unmistakable. "This," she said, "is exactly the kind of innovative thinking we've been looking for. Please continue." And I did. without a single interruption. Derek sat back down, face pale, eyes down. When it ended, Catherine came straight to me. "That was impressive, Ms. Pierce. Not just your analysis, your composure." When the clients left, Martin turned to me. "Derek," he said quietly, "my office, now." As Derek slunk away, Martin closed the door and faced me. "I owe you an apology," he said. "Clearly, I've missed something serious happening right under my nose." I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. "The presentation was excellent," he continued. "But I'm more concerned about what we just witnessed. How long has this been going on?" And for the first time in a long while, I told the truth. The question broke something loose in me. All the small slights, the dismissals, the being talked over and around, they came pouring out. Martin listened without interrupting, his expression growing more troubled with each example. When I finished, he nodded slowly. "Thank you for your honesty. This will be addressed. And Naomi, that analysis really was brilliant." I left the conference room feeling hollow, but somehow lighter. I'd stood up for myself, but I had no illusion that anything would really change. Men like Derek always failed upward. The most I could hope for was that he'd be warned to be more subtle in his dismissal of women. Back at my desk, I started gathering my things. I wasn't planning to quit exactly, but I needed to get out of the building. I needed air and space to think. My phone buzzed with a text from Elaine. "CEO's office. 3 p.m. Yeah, okay." I texted back a thumbs up. I didn't entirely feel and tried to focus on mundane work tasks for the next 3 hours. By 2:55, my stomach was in knots as I read the elevator to the executive floor. Martin's assistant showed me in immediately. To my surprise, Derek was already there, along with Elaine and Simeon from HR. I'd only met during orientation. "Naomi, please sit down," Martin said, gesturing to an empty chair. Notably not next to Derek. What happened next would change everything, but not in the way any of us expected. I settled into their care, smoothing my skirt with clammy hands. Martin's office felt too warm, the silence too thick. On his desk sat a folder with my name on it. "I've spent the last 2 hours reviewing your personal file," Martin began, hands folded on the desk and speaking with several team members. Derek sat naturally still, his usual confidence and all visible. "He wouldn't look at me. Naomi," Martin continued. "Would you be comfortable explaining to everyone what you shared with me after the meeting?" My throat tightened. This felt like Art Trap being asked to publicly accuse a superior of misconduct. I'd seen this movie before. The woman speaks up, gets labeled difficult, and somehow becomes the problem. But something had broken loose inside me in that conference room. I couldn't stuff it back down if it tried. "For the past 9 months," I said, my voice quiet but steady, "I've been consistently undermined, talked over, and misrepresented by Derek. Today wasn't an isolated incident. It was just the first time it happened in front of clients and senior management." Derek shifted in his chair. "That's a complete ago." "I'm not finished," I said, surprising even myself with my firmness. "I've had my ideas attributed to male colleagues. I've been asked to take notes in meetings I organized. I've been introduced as administrative support despite my title and qualifications. And you've documented every instance." The representative, Janelle, I now remembered, leaned forward. "You've kept records?" I nodded. "Dates, times, witnesses, exact quotes when possible." I didn't plan to use them. I just needed to remind myself I wasn't imagining things. Janelle and Martin exchanged glances. "Well," Derek finally spoke, his voice regaining some of its smooth confidence. "I think this is being blown out of proportion. If Naomi felt slighted by some misunderstandings about the role, she should have come to me directly instead of building this case against me. The way he said case made it sound like a dirty word. Derek, Martin said, his tone measured. We've spoken to Steve and other employees who independently drew to Naomi's account. This isn't about feeling slighted. It's about a pattern of behavior incompatible with all leadership standards. Derek's face flushed. So? I'm being what? Fired over a comment in a meeting. This is insane. You're not being fired, Martin replied. But you are being removed from the Thornton account. Effective immediately. Derek's mouth fell open. The Thornton account was the crown jewel, the path to partnership. You couldn't be serious. That's my account. I brought them in. Actually, Elaine spoke for the first time, sliding a sheet toward Martin. The initial contact came from Naomi's college alumni network. She flagged them as a potential client 3 months ago in an email that appears to have been overlooked. I'd forgotten about that email. I'd noticed Thornton mentioned in a business journal and recognized the name from a Temple alumni event. I'd sent Derek a detailed brief on why they'd be an ideal client for our new sustainability platform. He'd never acknowledged it. Furthermore, Martin cautioned Catherine Thornton called me personally after the meeting. She will get clear about who she wants handling their account moving forward. He turned to me. Naomi, they were impressed with your analysis and your composure under pressure. They've requested you be lead contact for their portfolio. Their room tilted slightly. I'd come to this meeting prepared to be gaslit, victim blamed, or at best give an empty promise about looking into the situation. I hadn't prepared for this. I'm not qualified to lead an account that size, I said automatically, the voice of self-doubt that had become my constant companion. Your credentials and work suggest otherwise, Martin replied. Unless you don't want the position. Of course, I wanted it, but doubt nodded at me. Was this a setup? Give the complaining woman an impossible task. Watch her fail. Problem solved. I want it. I said straightforward. But I need proper support and authority to succeed. Martin nodded. You'll report directly to Elaine with a new title, Senior Investment Strategist, and you'll have resources to build your team. He slid a document across the desk. This outlines the compensation adjustment that comes with the new responsibilities. The number at the bottom of the page made me blink twice. A 47% increase. This feels I searched for the right word. Deserved. Elaine finished for me. Derek stood abruptly. This is complete, he snapped, abandoning his corporate polish. You're rep-promoting her for what? Playing the victim? Creating drama? Meanwhile, I'm being sidelined for a minor comment. Derek Janelle from HR warned. I strongly suggest you consider your next words carefully. He ignored her. Everyone's so afraid of looking politically incorrect that we're promoting people based on feelings instead of qualifications. I have 8 years of experience. She has a year plus an MBA from Temple. Not even a top-tier school. The room went completely silent. Even Derek seemed to realize he'd gone too far. Martin stood slowly. Derek, you're suspended pending a full review of your conduct. Please clean out your desk and surrender your badge to security. We'll be in touch about next steps. After Derek Ways caught it out, Martin apologized again. I failed you as a CEO, he said simply. I should have seen this happening in my company. The culture reflects leadership and clearly we have work to do. The meeting ended with promises of changes, follow-ups, and support. But as I walked back to my desk, I felt strangely empty. Yes, Derek was facing consequences. Yes, I'd been promoted, but it didn't feel like triumphant. Felt like exhaustion. Why did it take a public humiliation for my work to be recognized? Why had I needed to be perfect, unflappable, and meticulously daunting, just to be treated with basic professional respect? 3 days later, I was setting up my new office when Catherine Thornton herself appeared in my doorway. Getting settled in? She asked. glancing around the half-unpacked space. I stood quickly. "Mrs. Thornton, I wasn't expecting you. The quarterly review isn't until." She waved away my formality. "Call me Catherine, please. And I'm not here about the portfolio." She closed the door behind her and took a seat opposite my desk. "I wanted to talk to you about what happened in that meeting." My stomach tightened. "I apologize for any discomfort." "Stop," she said, not unkindly. "No apologies. What I saw in that room was something I've seen countless times in my 30 years influence. The difference was your response." She leaned forward. "Do you know how I built Bourton Holdings?" I nodded. "You inherited a small family investment firm and expanded it 16-fold over 2 decades. That's the Sanity Z version," she said with a small smile. "The reality is messier. I inherited a failing business from my father who never believed a woman could run it. My brother was the intended successor. I've had a gambling problem and nearly bankrupted us. The board, all men my father's age, voted unanimously against me leadership appointment. Every bank denied my loan applications. I hadn't learned any of this. I built this company by outlasting every man who told me I couldn't." She continued. "Sometimes loudly, sometimes quietly, but always persistently. What I saw in that conference room wasn't just a woman with excellent financial analysis. I saw Simeon who refused to be erased." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small box. "This was given to me by the first female mentor I ever had. I've carried it for 20 years. Inside was a simple silver pin in the shape of a door key. She told me it was a reminder that women before us picked locks on doors that were closed to them, so we could eventually hold the keys." Catherine necklaced the box and slid it across to me. "Now it's yours." I didn't know what to say. "I thank you. But why me?" "Because what happened to you happens every day in boardrooms everywhere, and most companies wouldn't have done a damn thing about it." She stood to leave. "We chose Westlake partly because of your analysis, yes, but mostly because of how the company responded. Real change happens when power acknowledges its blind spots." After she left, I sat holding that small silver key, thinking about all the women who had come before me. Ones who hadn't been believed, who didn't have a documentation, whose male colleagues closed ranks against them, who didn't have CEOs willing to listen, who couldn't afford to risk their jobs by speaking up. My revenge against Derek hadn't been about destroying him. It had been about refusing to participate in Mjorn diminishment any longer. The next 6 months transformed not just my career, but our entire company culture. Martin created a task force to examine gender dynamics across all departments with real budget and authority. Elaine was promoted to the executive team. Their board approved a comprehensive salary review that uncovered and corrected significant gender disparities. As for Derek, he wasn't fired, not directly, but the suspension led to a mutual separation 2 weeks later. I heard Helen did at a competitor, where he told anyone who would listen that he was forced out by politics. Maybe someday he'd understand what actually happened, but I doubted it. Men like Derek rarely saw their own reflections clearly. The Thornton account flourished under my management. 6 months in, they increased their investment by another $15 million. My team, intentionally diverse in gender, age, and background, developed innovations that attracted 3 more major clients. 1 year after that fateful meeting, I was invited to speak at a finance industry conference about sustainable investment models. As I walked onto the stage, I touched the small silver key pin on my lapel. The moderator introduced me. "Our next speaker is Naomi Pierce, senior investment strategist at Westlake Partners and the architect behind their industry-leading ESG portfolio approach." No one called me just anything. Looking out at the audience, I spotted an all-too-familiar pattern. Men in the front rows, women clustered further back. Older bits die hard. So, I began my talk differently than planned. Before I dive into sustainable investment strategies, I'd like to invite anyone sitting in Payback who wants a better view to come fill these empty seats in the front row. There was an awkward pause. Then movement as several young women made their way forward. I waited until they were settled before continuing. Thank you. Now we can all see and be seen clearly. That day I didn't just present investigator. I told my story not with bitterness, but with honesty about being undermined and overlooked. About documenting everything, about speaking up, about the cost of silence and the power of finally using your voice. Afterward, a line of people waited to speak with me. Mostly women with their own stories, their own dirks, their own moments of being made invisible. I listened to each own, recognizing the same pain and determination I'd carried. One young analyst handed me her business card with a note scrolled on the back. You made me brave enough to ask for the promotion I deserve. Thank you. That card sits on my desk today next to Catherine's silver key, reminding me that the most powerful form of revenge against those who try to diminish you isn't their downfall. It's your rise and the doors you open for others as you climb. The truth is, I never wanted Derek to fail. I just needed to succeed on my own merits, to be seen fully for my work, my intelligence, my contribution, to not have to be twice as prepared, twice as credentialed, twice as careful, just taken half as seriously. What happened that day in the boardroom wasn't just about an MBA degree or Eamon's casual cruelty. It was about the moment I decided I was done making myself smaller to make insecure men feel bigger. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd spoken up sooner. If I hadn't waited until I was pushed tummy breaking point. If I hadn't needed a public humiliation to recognize my own worth. But then I remember what Catherine told me. Change doesn't always come from grand gestures. Sometimes it comes from one person finally saying a now, when they've been quietly bending for too long. I don't know who needs to hear this today, but you are not just anything. Your credentials matter. Your voix matters. Your presence matters. And if someone tries to make you invisible, remember that you have the power to bring yourself back into focus. Document everything. Build your allies. Know your worth. And when the moment comes, and it will come, stand firmly in your truth. Not with rage, though you'll feel it. Not with vengeance, though you'll want it. But with that quiet, unshakable certainty that you belong exactly where you are. That's their revenge that changes everything. Not just for you, but for everyone watching. For everyone coming after you. For every woman who's ever been told she's just anything less than who she truly is. Have you ever been underestimated at work or school? How did you handle it? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. And if you found something valuable in mine, please subscribe. There's more where this came from. We're east by lifting others. And certainty mess that starts by simply telling the truth about how far we've had to climb.